What's up, guys? It's Dorm Room Takes with me, your amazing host, and with Vinny. This is the third week, so we're still kind of getting into the swing of things with this podcast. We're really happy and excited. And last week, you guys liked the Baker Mayfield video, so we're gonna keep on doing games kind of similar to that. But just kind of keep it fun, lighthearted discussion. But to begin, we are going to be a little more serious, talking about the NFL here. So the way I see it, each week in the league, there's about 4 to 6 teams that are really that's like the story of the week, right?
Yeah.
So outside of my Seahawks, who are the teams that I'm currently paying attention to? Who are the teams that I'm invested in? There's 5 right now. And most people would say these are the 5 best teams in the league, although one of them has some real question marks. But it's the 49ers, the Eagles, the Dolphins, the Chiefs, and the 5th one is the Cowboys, who until this week everyone was saying was one of the best teams in football. They lose to the Cardinals, but what's good for the Cowboys as far as their PR team goes, you lose an upset like that, everyone's talking about you. Mm-hmm. So those are the teams that I look at and say these are the most relevant teams right now in the league. And that can change, right? Preseason, the Bengals were more relevant, the Jets were more relevant, but that's what happens when you lose your quarterback to injuries. You fade away from relevancy, and new teams like the Dolphins pop up into it. That's what 70 points do to you. So I'm going to start with the Dolphins because this is what everyone is talking about. Vinny, walk me through. You watched that game more than I did.
I watched that game almost start to end.
Yeah.
Because I was highly invested because Tua Tagovailoa was my QB for fantasy, and I was tuning into that game a lot. And Red Zone was tuning in that game for a lot. Man, that was just what an interesting game in my opinion. I knew the Broncos were bad. I don't care how bad of a team you gotta be. No one is worse or bad enough to let the other team score 70. I mean, how bad of a team you gotta be to allow one team to score 70? This isn't college football, this is professional football. Now I get it, sometimes, you have those bad games, but man, that was a tough game for defense for the Broncos.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know what happened to the Broncos defense. I don't know if it was a change in scheme. I don't know if it was just a change in personnel. But this is a team that last year was allowing 18 points a game, and this year they're allowing 40 points a game. So somehow Sean Payton got there, and the defense completely changed, and it got so much worse. And it's ironic because
he's a defensive guy.
No, he's an offensive guy.
That's right.
But the irony is that in this offseason, Sean Payton, first thing he says, he gets to Denver, he says, this is the worst coaching job that I've ever seen, talking about last season, and he says, we're going to change everything that they did last year, we're going to completely switch it and do things my way. And clearly, he has switched it around because the offense looks slightly better, but the defense looks like it's completely switched. And if that was what Sean Payton meant, obviously that wasn't what he meant, but he's done a pretty good job of switching the entire team around because a team that was known for being a dominant defensive team is now literally the laughing stock of the NFL as far as defense.
Yeah, I mean, who's on the defense now for the Broncos? I can tell you 3 years ago, I could tell you a couple of those defenders on the Broncos. I can't even tell you one now. Is Justin Simmons, right? The free safety? Is he still on the Broncos?
I believe so. And then when they got Surtain, who is at this point, Surtain is just a league average cornerback. He never really took that next step into being a star, like obviously guys like Trayvon Diggs, guys like in Seattle. I believe Devin Witherspoon will do. Surtain never really took that next step to become an elite cornerback. He's kind of just an average, and he was like the 5th or 6th overall pick 2 or 3 years ago. So, the Broncos, it's a disaster. It's a dumpster fire. They play the Bears this week. I'm going to pick them to win.
They should win.
But they've burned me twice. I picked them to win. I picked them to beat the Raiders, and they lost by 1. And then I picked them to beat the Commanders, and they lost by 2. And then I picked the Dolphins last week, and that obviously, but I think I'm legitimately going to pick Denver for a 3rd time. Against the Bears, there's no way they lose to the Bears. But if I know one thing about the Broncos, they might find a way to lose to the Bears.
I would say the same. But I was looking at some other people who were doing power rankings, and I concur when they say this. The Bears are probably the worst team in the NFL for since the Browns.
Really bad
since the Browns, the Bears are that bad. That's what people are like. I'm not saying a lot of people are comparing this to, but that's what I'm comparing it to. Those Browns 6-10 years ago, man, they were terrible. That's what the Bears are right now.
Yeah, well, it's a combination. It's a coaching problem. I said when they hired Eberflus it was a bad hire, and it remains to be a bad hire. Justin Fields can't play in the NFL. At this point, they need to move off of him. They have no good weapons. They're running back. I mean, are you they made some baffling they went into the offseason with David Montgomery, and then they said, you know what? Actually, we don't want him. We're going to let him go to our division rivals. Instead, we're going to roll with Khalil Herbert and Roshan Johnson as our running backs. And as you would expect, Khalil Herbert is a bottom 5 starting running back in the NFL. And he was a guy that was being hyped up in the preseason as a top 3 round draft pick for fantasy. Justin Fields was being hyped up as a dark horse MVP candidate. DJ Moore was being hyped up as this amazing wide receiver 1. He's done nothing. So it's everything that they did in the offseason has failed, and that's because they didn't go out and get actual stars. They said, let's take a gamble on Khalil Herbert as a starter. Let's take a gamble on DJ Moore, who has been a good receiver, but he's not a true number 1, and you need a true number 1 for Justin Fields. Fields has nobody to throw to. It's DJ Moore and it's Darnell Mooney, who's fast but is not very good other than being fast. And who's their third guy?
I don't even know who their third guy is.
It's Claypool. Who had one good year in Pittsburgh, and since then he's been a number 3 receiver. I mean the Bears have 3 number 3 receivers. I mean DJ Moore is maybe a number 2, and they're like, oh, look at all the weapons we have. You don't have weapons. You have nobody. So the Bears are just the Bears and the Broncos both embarrassments. But let's go back to the Dolphins. Last year, Justin Fields, Tua, they played each other in the regular season, and the Chargers won the game. It was a close game. The Chargers won. And everybody in the media was saying the whole time, oh, Herbert's better, and they said the Dolphins took Tua 1 pick before the Chargers took Herbert. So the last year, everyone was talking about how the Dolphins should have picked Herbert, and I said at the time, let's take a pause on this. I think these guys are closer to each other than we think, and I think I'm being proven. I mean, I predicted 2 years ago Tua would win an MVP. I didn't predict it would happen this year. It still seems stupid to say Mahomes won't win the MVP, but currently Tua's the best quarterback in the NFL through 3 weeks. I like to take a little bit of credit on this, even though I picked the Dolphins to win 8 games this year. But last year I said Tua is just as good as Herbert. He's better than we think. I said he was going to be an MVP caliber quarterback. Other people said he would be a bust, and that Ryan Fitzpatrick should be the starter instead of him. So I'm kind of happy with myself right now. Tua's proving me right. But what do you think about this? And right now, Tua, Justin Herbert, they're the top 2 quarterbacks statistically this year in the NFL. So they both are great draft picks.
I think for me, I was definitely on the Tua sucks train, especially when he got into the NFL, purely because of how he finished at Alabama, how that disappointing season he finished in his college year, and also how he's been injury prone and he just didn't look like he had the stuff. Now that I'm seeing him this year, last year, I was first few weeks, man, this has got to be Tua's year. I switched midway through his career so far in the NFL. I wanted him to do good because, man, he's got talent, and it reminded me of what he had at Bama. I watched some college football, and I was in love with him in Alabama, and I really wanted him to do well, but I was the injuries put him down. It's he's nothing anymore. But now he's looking good, and if he's staying off the IR, I think he's gonna have he's gonna be in that top 5 MVP candidate this year. I mean, he looked great on Sunday, and they play against the Bills this week. I think he's going to look good then. They may win it. Who knows? But I think Tua right now is probably better talent-wise than Herbert, but Herbert's more consistent right now. Just given the years they played, Herbert's been more consistent. But I think when the year's said and done, I think people are going to start taking Tua over Herbert.
Well, the key is Tua wins more than Herbert does, but Herbert hasn't been injured, and Tua has. So, because Tua hasn't played a full season, but Tua's also never had a losing record in a season.
That is
Whereas
true.
Herbert has had 2 winning seasons, 1 losing season. This year looks like it could be his 2nd losing season. And it's not all Justin Herbert's fault. The coach sucks. The defense is pretty bad.
Mhm.
So, the Chargers could win 7 or 8 games this year, and Herbert could be a top 5 quarterback in the league. Very similar to what former Chargers Phillip Rivers always had to deal with the same exact thing. So, you worry kind of that they're kind of becoming the same player almost. But I think both quarterbacks were great draft choices.
They were.
I love both of them. I think they both are going to be in the MVP discussions for a long time. Again, the question with both of them, if Tua misses even 3 games in a season, his MVP case goes way down. And if Herbert doesn't make the playoffs, his MVP case goes way down. So I think they're going to be perennially contenders for that MVP award. But it's the guys like Mahomes who end up coming out with it because they can play the whole season, great stats, and they have a winning team in the playoffs. So that's why the Mahomeses of the world are the ones who are going to get the MVPs. But Tua's right there. Right now, he's the best in the NFL.